Hi all, I'm CullenPHaynes and welcome to Law Live. Been a few weeks, I would say, since we've been streaming. I'm in the new broadcast room at home because we're making way for baby number 2. So changing things up. But all is well, and I think it's well worth the wait because my next guest is an absolute powerhouse in every sense of the word. Had 16 years in law and joined OpenLegal before the pandemic. He's a director there, and we're going to be talking all things law, tech, and what it means to be a law evangelist. Could you please make very welcome my dear friend, Philip Evangelou. How are you, Philip? What's happening?
Hi, Cullen. Thanks for inviting me on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, mon ami. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. And everyone's probably asking, what is happening in your circle of influence right now? What's the latest?
I think there's just a lot of activity happening in terms of businesses wanting to be compliant, especially in employment law with all the new changes coming in lately. So really busy, advising clients about these new changes and how they can be at the forefront of being compliant with those.
Very good, very good. And I want to talk about that because, you've had a background and journey to get where you are today. Obviously, started in the pandemic. I'd like to talk about you becoming a legal partner at OpenLegal and your pivotal experiences that shaped your career and led you to this point, and how maybe your background influenced your approach to advising in-house legal teams.
Yeah, so I guess I started off in private practice in 2007, and then I actually worked in-house for a few years for a large insurer in Australia, and then after that went back to private practice and decided to move to London, where I started working for a litigation fund for about 4 years, and then came back to Australia in sort of 2019.
Yes.
And yeah, I guess it influenced how I work with in-house legal teams because I've worked in-house myself, so I understand their pain points, I understand, their challenges, so I can really empathize with what they're facing and who they're dealing with in-house in terms of reporting to management and making sure that they're on top of things. So I think that has had a big influence on how I approach, advising in-house legal teams.
No, it's really, really, really well said. And I guess talking about those specific legal challenges, like what are the most common things that you're seeing maybe by medium size firms and larger with, I think, 50 employees is your sweet spot, and I guess how you guide them through those hurdles, as it were.
Yeah, I guess at the moment, where, like I mentioned earlier, it's employment law is sort of the hot topic, and sort of how they're going to manage these changes going forward, and really focusing on implementing risk management strategies in relation to those new laws, and like an implementation strategy as well, and things like that. So yeah, I think all of those challenges that they're facing at the moment, I'm really enjoying coming up with solutions to the problems that they're facing or the challenges that they're facing. So I love that problem-solving role that I play in advising in-house legal teams.
No, I think that's really well said. And what I would say, because we are live, we're streaming live, AEDT. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. We're beaming live, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X, TikTok is here as well. It's all happening. So please put your questions in the comment. This is live. This is not a recording. And piggybacking off what you were saying, is there any interesting case studies or success stories where what you've done has actually made a significant impact to the in-house legal team?
Yeah, so one example I can think of is like presenting on policies and procedures and implementing training to in-house legal teams, but also to non-in-house legal teams. So helping them comply with the, for example, the recent change made where employers are expected to be proactive about eliminating discrimination and harassment in the workplace. Like, gone are the days where they could just be reactive. Now they actually have to demonstrate what are we doing to prevent sort of discrimination in the workplace, and I get joy out of helping companies and in-house legal teams comply with, for example, that particular one, because I have experienced sort of discrimination and harassment myself in a past life in a job. So I want to try and prevent that happening to other people, because I'll never forget the feeling of, what it felt like to be on the other end of that. So if there's any way I can make that impact with companies, like that's like one of my passions, and one of the impacts I enjoy making.
I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that there, Philip. It's nothing anyone wants to go through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, before we get into my next question about balancing legal and business goals, would you say that firms have a robust, inclusive culture and all the values are there are immune to such problems in the workplace? Or do you think it's a safeguard, but it's not a solve all?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this new legislation, where it is mandatory to be proactive about it, is going to help prevent it, because I guess in any society or in any workplace, there can be ignorance there, and unfortunately, where there is ignorance, that's where there's opportunities for these things to occur. So I guess the more education and training we provide in workplaces around these topics, and make it clear, like, what is acceptable and what isn't, then that will basically prevent these issues happening in the first place.
No, I think I'm endeared by what you're saying, and you can hear my baby screaming in the background. I think he's excited about what you're saying as well. There, Philip. So he's picking up what you're putting down. Thank you, Benji. Balancing legal and business goals. Now, in-house lawyers often need to balance legal compliance with business objectives. How do you strike that balance? Like it's a never-ending tightrope, right?
Yeah, that's true, and I think getting in early in terms of the strategic planning stage of where the business wants to go, and getting sort of legal advice at that stage to sort of plan out the legal strategy as well, just to ensure that the company is prepared in putting risk management things in place before the risks even have the opportunity to sort of materialize. So yeah, I guess one of the main things to focus on is like forward planning and open communication in terms of brainstorming policies and procedures to sort of try and prevent the risks coming to fruition. And that open communication between the business side and the legal team and the external legal team, like that three-way dialogue, is a really good way of managing those at the early stage.
Makes sense. And I would encourage people to actually comment on this. If you are an in-house lawyer or in a team, ask Philip what you're seeing, and any insights we can glean, we can talk about live right now. What other strategies do you recommend for aligning legal advice with a company's growth and innovation goals? Because sometimes they can be at odds, right?
Yeah, I think with innovation goals, I think intellectual property is a really important area that companies need to try and protect at all levels, like including at the employee level, and also making sure that the systems are in place to protect that intellectual property, both during when the growth phase and during like the actual creation of the innovation, after they go to market or before they go to market. So I think making sure that all the trademarks or the patents are registered, all things to do with intellectual property. I mean, that's one of the most valuable parts of a company. So we really like to be proactive in that area with our clients to make sure that they have adequately protected all their IP, and also through their employment contracts, making sure that employees have a contractual obligation to keep that sensitive information confidential and protected.
Makes sense. Okay, good insights there, Philip. And I guess talking about, I guess the risk management side, how do you assess and manage that level of risk for the companies you're dealing with? And are any risk areas that people should pay closer attention on or deserve closer attention?
Yes, that's a good question, Cullen. I think I would like make sure that there's a risk analysis done, and not just internally by an in-house legal team. It's always good to get like a second set of eyes, because if you're working in-house in a company, sometimes you can't see where the risks are. But then when you get someone external looking in from a different perspective, they can identify potential risks and help you manage them, and also suggest solutions to those potential risks, from a compliance perspective, but also from employee risks, workplace health and safety risks. There's a multitude of risks that a company faces, so it's always good to be on the front foot of those, with both the in-house legal team and external legal counsel.
And is there any preventative measures that in-house legal can take to minimize their legal exposure, in your expert opinion?
Yeah, I think regular auditing of risk systems and risk management processes that are in place, and updating policies and procedures on a regular basis. So, at least at a minimum, reviewing them every 6 months to see, if they're up to date and adequate, and if anything needs to be updated due to new threats. Like there could be new cyber threats, there could be new, something to do with artificial intelligence, or the latest things would be, employees having side hustles. That's becoming a hot topic, in terms of in large companies or medium-sized companies. Where do you draw the line in terms of what you can and can't do with employees in terms of controlling what they do as a side hustle? So, and making sure that doesn't impact their productivity at work and their, what they're meant to be doing, even when they're working from home.
Makes sense. And on that working from home note, obviously tech, legal, and innovation is a big thing. Obviously, OpenLegal, you obviously joined pre-pandemic. So with the evolving tech landscape and everything happening, how can in-house legal counsel, I guess, leverage the technology to streamline processes and make everything a little bit more efficient?
Yeah, so I think having like a good contract management system, and even using sort of AI to brainstorm how you can sort of better manage your contracts or better manage risks, and streamlining processes in terms of how things get checked throughout an in-house legal team. So we always like to be practical with our clients in terms of their systems and processes that they're using in-house, and then suggest potential technology solutions where they can create efficiencies and streamline things so that they save time in terms of checking things within the team. And, technology can sort of make things a lot easier if you know how to use it and leverage it properly. So we always like looking at ways and how we can sort of automate things or make things like more streamlined for our clients using technology, both here and both, on site with our clients.
And, I really want to jump into this a little bit more with the advent of AI. It's not a new thing, but obviously it's on everyone's lips over the past 12 to 18 months with ChatGPT and whatnot. Is there any AI software or emerging technology you find particularly promising for medium-sized companies that need this assistance?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of options out there in terms of AI-based. They're at the sort of premature phase of sort of experimentation phase in terms of where it's at. So it's really early stage, and there's a lot of pilot programs out there that businesses can use to sort of look at things from a risk management perspective. But most of the AI that I've seen is to do with more looking at marketing and those types of things, but also looking at strategy and what the trends are out there. So there's definitely a wild multitude of new AI programs coming out there, and we're always like researching alongside with clients on what they can potentially use to help streamline things.
Well, and if there's any other people watching or want to know any other technology questions and whatnot, please put them in the comments. We've got a few viewers, which is great. Obviously, everyone's on their commute home, Philip, so they're engaged. They're wanting to know what's going on. So let's get into collaboration and communication. So obviously, effective communication between legal and non-legal teams is absolutely vital. So how do you foster that collaboration within organizations? Because I don't know, sometimes I think there might be a dissident or might not want to actively get involved unless there's a real problem. It seems to be, you only talk to legal when there's a problem, right?
Yeah, so I think that's a cultural thing in terms of only going to legal when there's a problem. I would actually encourage in-house legal teams to actually have regular, at a minimum, monthly meetings with the non-legal teams in the management level to sort of ask the right questions to identify potential risks that could be coming up in the future due to compliance developments or new laws and regulations coming up, and like talking to them and how they can have a practical solution being implemented before they come up and have to sort of rush around to try and implement it at the last minute. Like actually have a strategic plan of implementing it and rolling it out through training and education in the non-legal teams in a calendar sort of planning format. So that regular check-in and that regular communication, it's kind of critical to make sure that businesses are prepared in being compliant before issues come up down the track, and someone running to legal and saying, "Oh, this has happened. How could we have prevented it?" Well, if you had had the planning meetings and properly foreshadowed potential things happening, then it becomes more of a proactive culture rather than a reactive culture.
No, it's good. Prevention is better than cure. You'd
Of
rather have
course.
that conversation, not need it, than need it, not have it. And I think that segues very nicely into my next question. I think that old paradigm of lawyers being very introverted is not true. I've met many extroverted lawyers and have no problem, building relationships with other departments and whatnot. But if there are those in-house lawyers who find it hard to, start conversations and collaborate with other departments, they're watching now. What would you say? What would be your advice to them?
I would say you would need to actually have structure around how legal and compliance is implemented in the workplace. So rather than have an unstructured approach, actually have regular meetings and open communication with an agenda and actual set questions that you want to be asking on a regular basis to ensure there is compliance in the business. Because if you're not checking in with the non-legal team management, you're not really going to know if there's any issues popping up as and when they do, and sort of being proactive about preventing the fires before they catch on fire. So I think that regular communication is really important, and also if they do need extra support from external legal counsel, like making sure you have a really good supportive external counsel helping you manage that process as well.
Yeah, very, very well put there, Philip. And I'm just going to invite again, if there's anything you'd like to ask Philip, almost at the end of the stream, we've got a few questions to go, but put them in the comments, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, X, TikTok, whack them in, and we'll do our best to answer them live. And thank you for anyone watching or rewatching or re-listening to on the podcast, Law Live. Now, ethics and compliance. How do you ensure? I know it's the one. It seems to be the one CPD point that everyone saves to the end, the old ethics. But how do you ensure ethical conduct within the company while meeting your legal requirements? How do you get that fine-tuned?
Yeah. I think with ethical conduct, it's always comes down to sort of like what policies and procedures do companies have in place, and what education and training have they rolled out to the staff about those things, and what are the ethical standards and values of the company, and how they communicated to the entire company at all levels. So I guess when it comes down to making sure that the teams are operating in an ethical way, I think it really does come down to that communication of the policies and procedures of each company.
And what do you find is the main role of compliance playing in that trust with stakeholders, in your opinion?
I guess that the role of compliance is making sure that there's no potential risks to the company that then ends up in causing potential financial penalties or investigations being conducted against the company, because then that has a massive impact on all stakeholders if that occurs. So yeah, compliance and trust is really the two main sort of things. If you're not compliant, then that reduces the trust and that increases the risk to the business. So yeah, I guess they're all interrelated in that way.
Definitely. And is there any final thoughts or anything you'd like to impart before we, I guess, get into some personal questions and the close of the stream?
I think, one of the things in law is, I guess, making sure that you are looking after yourself, so then you can look after your team, because as they say, like, you need to make sure your cup is full before you can fill the others. So I'm a big advocate of mental health, both in the workplace but also outside the workplace.
Put your own mask on first, as it were, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. And more of a personal question there, Philip. You've had such a colorful background, and you're obviously love and lit by what you do, and it comes through in your passion. When all is said and done, though, and you get to the end of your days, how would you like to be remembered individually?
Yeah, I think this answer might be a bit cliche, but I do want to leave the world in a better condition than when I was born, and one of the ways I want to do that is by making an impact and leaving a legacy that continues to make a positive impact on the world. So I'm a big advocate of philanthropy and charities. I'm on the board of the Staying Alive Foundation, which promotes heart health and also the connection between mental health and physical health.
Yes.
So being an advocate of those types of charities and helping the less fortunate is what I want to be remembered for.
Okay, the Staying Alive Foundation. I'm putting the link in there as well, so people can support that. Staying Alive Foundation.au for anyone interested. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
No, my pleasure. And where are you hanging out most at the moment, would you say there, Philip? Where can people find you? Where can they get in contact?
Well, our offices are based in Town Hall in Sydney. And in terms of like what I do for hobbies and socially, I'm doing a lot of hiking around the national parks around Sydney, and like jogging around like Brushcutters Bay. So that's usually where I'm hanging out.
Fantastic. A bit of a runner then. You're like, good man after my own heart, let me tell you. Well, thanks so much for being a part of the official part of the stream there, Phil. We'll bring you back for some bonus questions, but it's been illuminating to say the least. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Cullen. It's been a pleasure.
You're a good man. We'll bring you back very shortly. And if you're a legend of law or know someone who is, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn or any of the platforms. We come out every Wednesday, speaking to a legend of law. And you can rewatch this on any of those platforms I mentioned or wherever you get your podcast. So thank you so much, everyone. Bye for now. Take care. Bringing you back there, Philip, if you could describe your role in law to a 6-year-old child, how would you go about doing that?
That's a good question. I think I'm trying to think of the most simplistic way of describing it. Maybe I would describe it as I help company managers and in-house company lawyers have peace of mind so they can sleep at night.
There you go. And then the kids' question's probably going, "Oh, there's people that can't sleep at night? Oh my goodness. What's that
Exactly.
like?" Oh, very good. And my final question, and I'm a physics major at heart, so it's kind of like a quantum physics thing. But going back in time, if you could go back and visit Philip Evangelou at any age, what age would you go back in time and visit yourself? And what would the advice you'd give your younger version of yourself be?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I would transport back in time to when I was about 7, like just starting primary school sort of age. And the advice I would give is you're going to come up against some challenges in your life, and it's always super important to fill your cup first before you help fill others, and make sure you pick yourself up and keep moving even when times get tough.
Oh my goodness. That's beautiful. 7-year-old going back in time. And I think there's some important lessons. Very good. And it seems like you've taken on board that message well, given that I think you practice it every day, it seems as well,
Exactly.
Philip. Good
You
man.
got to practice what you preach.
You have to. You have to. Well, thank you again, everyone who's watching. There's been a few people there as well, which has been great. And we'll get more people engaging. Thank you so much again, Philip. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Cullen. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to catching up with you again.
Absolutely. Bean Bar or La Riviera. A coffee is on our cards for sure. Happy
Perfect.
Wednesday evening, everyone. Take care.
Happy Wednesday.
Good man. Well done.